Hola, so in today's video, we're going to be going over los mandatos afirmativos con tú, the affirmative to commands, and you can find them on page 168 of your textbook. So in Spanish, we use the affirmative to commands when you want to tell a friend, family member, or young person to do something. So to give these commands, we're going to use the present tense, él, ella, or usted form of the verb. So if you remember from Spanish 1, you learned how to conjugate regular verbs, right? So you had verbs that end in er, like hablar, verbs that end in er, like leer, verbs that end in ir, like escribir. When you conjugate it, if it ends in ar, you just add an a, right? So it's like habla. If it ends in er, it's like le, right? If you have a verb that ends in ir, such as escribir, it's escribe. Now, if you want to make the command and like tell someone to do something, we're going to use exactly the same form of the verb. On the next slide, you'll see differences of how they're used in context or in sentences. So for AR verbs, a, ER verbs, IR verbs, as well. And this is once again regular verbs in the present tense. So here, in these first two sentences, we have the verb escribir, to write. In one of the sentences, it's used as a statement. In the other one, it is used as a command. So looking at this first statement, Beatriz escribe en su cuaderno. Do you think that's a statement or a command? Am I stating Beatriz writes in her notebook, or am I telling Beatriz to write in her notebook? Beatriz escribe en su cuaderno. It's a statement. One, we can hear it the way I'm saying it. It's Beatriz escribe en su cuaderno. She writes in her notebook. Now, if I were to say, Beatriz escribe en tu cuaderno, I have Beatriz, I have the comma, right? So I'm pausing to get her attention. And then I'm also saying, write in your notebook. I have this possessive adjective, tu, right there that lets us know that it's your notebook. So Beatriz, write in your notebook. Whereas this says, Beatriz escribe en su, Beatriz escribe en su cuaderno. So here, she writes in her notebook. So you can hear the differences when a person is talking. On paper, you can also visually see the differences because one, in the command, you have the comma, and then you have the exclamation marks to emphasize. So here in these sentences, I have the verb levantar pesas, right? And they're conjugated. So I'm going to say it. I want you to think, which one do you think it is? Andrés, levanta pesas en el gimnasio. So I'm going to say it again. Andrés, levanta pesas en el gimnasio. So is that the statement or the command? So the way I was saying it, it was the command. So I'm trying to get his attention, right? So I had that pause. I said, Andrés, levanta pesas en el gimnasio. So I'm like telling him, hey, lift weights in the gym. Now, if I were to say, Andrés levanta pesas en el gimnasio, that's a statement. Like I'm saying he lifts weights at the gym. But then here I'm trying to get his attention, like, hey, lift weights at the gym, right? You need to gain some muscle. So how it's said can influence or determine if it's a statement or a command. On paper, once again, you're going to visually see the comma and then the exclamation marks as well. So that's for regular verbs. And then these are the endings, right? AR verbs you use a, ER and IR verbs you use e. You have some irregular verbs on page 168. So these are the 5 verbs that are going to be irregular, that are going to have a similar pattern. So poner, tener, decir, salir, and venir. In the present tense, when you conjugated them, they were all yogo verbs. Like poner was pongo, tener was tengo, decir was digo, like yo digo, salir was salgo, venir was vengo. And poner meant to place, to put, to set. If you remember what tener meant, it was to have. Decir means to say or tell. Salir means to leave. And then venir means to come. So when you're making the command form of these 5 verbs, rather than using the LA form of the verb, we're actually going to use or drop the go from the end of it, and we're going to get the command. So it's going to be pon, ten, di, sal, and ven. So if I were to say like, Sara, pon la mesa, like Sarah, set the table, it would be pon rather than pone because it's an irregular verb. Like Cesar, ten cuidado. I know tener means to have, but in this context, it means to be. So like, be careful. Ten cuidado. Manolo, di la verdad, like say the truth, right? So it's the. Salir is an irregular verb, so it's going to be sal, like Pepe. Sal de mi casa, like leave my house, right? And then venir, like Marta, ven a mi concierto. Like if you're talking to Marta and you have a concert at school, like come to my concert, come watch me sing. So ven a mi concierto. So these 5 verbs, you drop the go from the present tense, you'll form to get the command. And then you have 3 additional verbs that are going to be irregular: hacer, ser, and ir. So these just have to be memorized. So hacer is as, ser is se with an accent, and then ir is ve. So like haz la tarea, like do your homework, like be all you can be, like the army's motto, or so it's like a se, todo lo que puede ser. I think that's what it says in Spanish. And then ir is ve. So those were the affirmative commands that are irregular. Now, reflexive pronouns, direct object pronouns, and indirect object pronouns. Those are all different types of pronouns, right? So when you're making an affirmative command, you can also use those pronouns in the sentence with the command. So like here, if I were to say, Pedro come frutas, like Peter, eat fruits. What's the direct object noun? Las frutas, the fruits. So I can replace frutas with the pronoun rather than saying like eat the fruits, I can say eat them. So it could be comelas. And then this las, it's taking the place of the fruits. If you attach the pronoun, you're going to add an accent on the third to last syllable of the verb. So here, like Cesar, haz la mesa. Like let's say he was a carpenter and you're telling him, make the table, right? So build the table, right? Um, so haz la mesa, like make it, create it. So then if I want to have him like make it, it would be hazla. No accent because it's only a 2-syllable word. We only add the accent when you have 3 or more syllables. Rodrigo, lee el libro. Like we're telling him, read the book. So I want to say read it. So I'm going to replace the book with it. It would be lelo. So we're going to add the accent on the third to last syllable. So right there. Claudia, paga mi tarjeta de crédito. Like if you want Claudia to pay your credit card, like pay my credit card. So I could replace the credit card with the pronoun, and I can say like pay it. So págala. So this la is taking the place of the credit card. So we can also use direct object pronouns in a sentence, and the same would be true for IOPs or reflexive pronouns. You could just attach the pronoun at the end of the verb. So let's practice. So we have Cassandra, para tu examen. We're telling her to study. What would it be? Estudia para tu examen. Like we're talking to Sofia. Sofia, tu libro en el estante. So how would you make that command? Like place your book on the shelf. Pon, right? Not pone, right? Because it's an irregular verb, so it's pon. We're talking to Marta. We're telling her like eat vegetables. What would it be? Come, right? We use the el, ella form of the verb. So Maya, we're talking to Maya. How would we conjugate this command? We'd say Maya, a mi fiesta. Ven a mi fiesta, like come to my party, right? It's an irregular verb. And then Anabel, la manzana, like cut the apple. How would we say cut the apple? Corta la manzana. Muy bien, so that was it for the affirmative 2 commands. Hasta luego, chicos.